Hello, Kimberly Perry.
How's it going?
It's always weird to do a formal introduction after we've been talking for 15 minutes. Hello, Kimberly Perry. You just were at the studio at my house, and I think what's funny is as you arrived, you saw your trainer here.
Oh, I thought it was funny too. She did not think it was funny. I owe her a call. I just totally blew out workouts last week, and I was like, I'm just early morning.
What
And
a way to
so-
get caught.
I know.
You come in to do an interview, see your good old friend Bobby, and you run into your trainer that you've been avoiding, who's here with my wife. I did not know that. I would have hid you. I would have squeezed you in through like a side tunnel.
Thank you. I love her so much, but my heart immediately felt convicted,
Mhm.
and my body felt shamed.
How has it been the last month or so for you? How old's the baby?
So the baby is 12 weeks.
It's been 12 weeks
Can you
already?
believe it? I know.
Well, I don't know if you posted the Instagram, whatever, the update.
It was just a
current.
few days after he was
Okay,
born.
so
I can't
that's
believe
crazy
it.
then that it's that long ago.
It's amazing. I mean, it's been both the longest and quickest 12 weeks of my life. I haven't really ever been around babies ever. I think they're so sweet and cute and cuddly, but I just had no experience. And I think Johnny and I were like, I know our whole life is going to change. We just didn't know how. And now I know.
So can I ask you some questions about, not
Please.
selfishly,
No, please.
these are all very selfish questions, because we are at the stage now where we're starting to talk about having kids.
Okay.
She's not pregnant. No, nobody print an article. She's not pregnant. I promise. So she's not. No, she's not
Done.
pregnant in any way. But we definitely are having those conversations now.
Yeah.
The baby part, the baby part seems awful.
Okay, so I just want to be transparent.
I need the real talk.
You have people who go like the newborn phase was not my favorite. As a mother, I feel like I just want to be honest. I love him more than anything, and I would give up any minute of sleep for him to be our baby. I'm so grateful for that, but it is a challenge. And we have had kids older, right? I always was like, it's got to be so hard to have kids in your early 20s for sure. A lot of people are waiting longer. I think it's equally harder older because we were like so set in our patterns and in our schedule. It's like I can grind all week and then sleep for hours on Saturday, kind of catch up. Don't have that same option anymore. And I'm loving it. It's like a science experiment every day.
That's so hilarious because, yeah, I bet it is.
I mean, it's crazy. We're really figuring each other out. And for me, I'm a communicator. So the hardest thing for me was like all give and no receive for the first, 10 weeks. But then the last 2 weeks, he's like smiling and he's laughing. And we're doing this thing where we can communicate this little gurgle sound.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks it's hilarious that we're communicating. So for me, we're getting into that phase where it's like, okay, you're giving me just a little bit of communication back. And so I'm loving that part of it. But it's a challenge, definitely.
Are you all the time exhausted?
Yes. And so when we do that, thank God we've been able to bring in like a night nurse.
I was going to ask if you had help because my
Yes.
wife was like, we don't need help. And I'm like, no,
No,
I
you
can actually
do.
afford help now. So
No, dude, let me tell you. So the first night that we came home from the hospital, we were going to have a night nurse like 3 nights the first week. And then when we had him in the hospital, I was like, let's just cancel. We've got this. So we come home the first night and I just thought like you would put a baby down in a bassinet and he would sleep.
and leave the room and all of a sudden.
Leave the room.
Yes.
We got a bottle of wine. We ordered some sushi. And all of a sudden, at 10 p.m., I was like, we don't got this. And it was a really, really wild night. So I texted Amandine with Mama Moon at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, you have to have somebody here tomorrow. Like, I need somebody to teach me what I'm doing. And so we've had help.
So it wasn't all just naturally maternal?
No, I mean, I think loving him is. I think like cuddling him is.
I
But
say that kiddingly because I
but like
yeah.
understanding how sleep patterns work. I mean, it is science, right? Like his naps are in a 45-minute rhythm. And then if you want him to sleep for 2 sets of 45, I got to make sure that he like crosses that gap between the two. So I got to soothe him. He can't
I do
self-soothe
that
yet.
with Mike. Same
You
thing I do
do?
with Mike. Yeah. Yeah. So are you emotional? Are you intellectually tired as well because you're learning all of this stuff as well as emotionally and physically? Are all three hitting you at the same time?
I think for me, it's more physical. I don't feel emotionally tired. I do. It's definitely physical. Intellectually, I love to Google. So like I'm in the middle of the night. I was saying right before we got started, I'm doing the 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift right now. So from about like midnight to 2 a.m., I'm just like learning on Google and asking every question that can pop in my mind. I thrive on information. So that's been really cool. It's just the physical part of it. It's just unlike anything I've experienced so far.
Meaning afterward, you're just broken down, your body, or physical being awake all the time? I'm not
Physical
asking this
being
for,
awake all the time.
by the
for
way,
me.
this could not even be recorded. I'm asking selfishly. This is not
No,
even for like interview. Yeah.
I think it's a great conversation to have, especially for the line of work that we're all in, right? Like we grind so many hours of the day. It's just a different kind of grind. I had just never really experienced like sleep deprivation in the same way. And so I'm an incredibly patient person. And then there are these moments when my husband just has to go like, hey, this is you tapping out for a minute, right? And I'm like, you got to take him for the next couple of hours. We definitely had great teamwork, but the sleep deprivation, I just wasn't prepped for at all.
What was being pregnant like?
I enjoyed it. I mean, I wasn't like one of those women that was like, I love being pregnant. I can't wait to do it again. But it was so rewarding for me for a few reasons because I think body consciousness in my career has always been something that was like, okay, unless you are 120 pounds, like you're not going to win this award, or you cannot put out a single if you're 10 pounds overweight and do a shoot for it. Like that was so in my head that the success of music was directly proportionate to what the scale said for me. And I think that it was an interesting day to grow up in artistry too, because on one hand, like social media and TikTok, everything that is so raw and let's see all behind the scenes of everything has been a benefit to not have to really like have everything hinge on perfection. I think it's better that we know our artists behind the scenes these days. But for me, growing up in the first half of our career, it felt very much like perfection. I remember having somebody at our label called me one time the first time I showed up at like a radio show early in the morning, which you guys can appreciate, at like 5 a.m. I was like, I just can't do makeup this morning, you know? And then I got a call about it. It was like, don't ever show up without makeup. Really? So for me, I think being pregnant was getting to be perfectly imperfect, if that makes sense. And it was sort of like just embracing this season of womanhood versus, I don't know, just something that I had not gotten to embrace before. And that was incredibly special for me.
So you kind of like being pregnant? I
liked the freedom of it, yeah.
That's why I would like to get pregnant.
You should do that.
Because there's no choice. You're going to produce, you're going to have a kid, and it's not like you can't, because there's a pressure. I put a pressure on myself. I think we all have, depending on our career, but both of us do something that's very visual as well.
Yes.
And with the television shows that I do, people can laugh, but I have to stay a certain fitness level. And it's not to the same standard as women, I'm not saying that. But I know for a fact that if I don't look a certain way, there are certain shows that just won't even have the patience to even talk to me about it.
Totally.
And so that if I were to get pregnant, which can't happen obviously, but it'd be so cool that I could be like, I can't do anything about it, guys, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I do understand that as I joke about it. Yeah, you have no choice but to accept it almost.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just a very freeing thing for me. And it was also cool to like see people respond to it with, hey, you're building motherhood and music at the same time. And both felt they're both from the ground up again for me.
Did people touch you? Like your belt? You didn't?
No.
Good.
And I'm grateful for that. Like there were some people that would ask permission. And if I knew them well, I was like, yeah, sure. Like,
would you say
can you believe he's here? But I have not said, nobody has put me in an awkward position, thank God. But
that's hilarious.
I don't love it, when people come up and just do the, hey, let me. This makes me uncomfortable.
See, that's also why I wish I could be pregnant, because I'd like people to do that to me, touch me, just randomly, come up and just rub the belly.
Very strange.
Do you feel like, I just want to go back to one of the things you said a second ago, where you said you went to a radio show in the morning and just the unfair pressure on artists or women.
Yeah.
Both and separately at the same time. Do you feel like your brothers would get the same call?
I don't. I mean, that's a funny way to ask that, because I think like we all felt different pressures in different ways, but theirs was not as much physical. I think the nature of our band, though, because we all felt like perfectionism is something that we had to produce, I do think they put a lot of pressure on themselves in the same way that, you're talking, like we got to stay fit. We had a trainer out on the road. I think everybody liked to look good, right? Like we all enjoyed that, but I don't feel like they would have gotten the call from outside the unit, if you will.
Where do you stand on the band, talking about the band how it relates to your solo career now, because I'm sure you don't want to hop into every interview and the whole time talk about the band. I wouldn't want to talk about the band Perry the whole time.
Right.
But like, what would your goal be if you walked into, let's say, somebody's doing some content and they're talking for 20 minutes. They're going to want to talk about the band Perry because that's how all of us were introduced to you.
Sure.
What would be your perfect situation when you walk in, time-wise, percentage-wise?
I mean, I think for me, it's about the first round of conversation, right? Like, I think even when I got to do your show earlier in the year, I was like, we're definitely going to talk about TBP because there are a lot of unanswered questions. Not only like, why did we put the band on hiatus, but let's be honest, like the last handful of years. I mean, I saw this thing on TikTok that another outlet put out, and they were like country bands that killed their career, and it was like kind of a bummer on one hand because the facts were just wrong. But I noticed that like every other hit on that TikTok page, it was like 1,500 views and likes. It said like 1.2 million. And I'm just like, I know that people have unanswered questions. And so I want to be patient and answer those as much as I can. I also, though, think it's really important that everybody understands I'm a new female artist, right? I was grateful to be a part of that, but I am an artist in my own right. There are some sins of the TBP past that I don't want to pay for and I won't pay for as a solo artist, but I'm happy to give some context to the roller coaster that became our career. Some things that we could control and other things, a lot of things that we couldn't.
And I asked that question because, for example, we'll sit here for an hour and do whatever, and a lot of people will reference this interview because we'll spend a lot of time talking about a lot of different things.
Sure.
And in research for interviews that you'll do with other people, people will hear this interview.
Yeah.
And so I asked that because you're not talking to anyone specifically, but you can literally say, I don't mind a couple questions about it, but I freaking don't want to talk about it for all 20 minutes if we're doing a 20-minute. So, like, really, right now in this season of you, people want to know, but how much until you get annoyed?
Probably, like, because I understand where I'm at, I'm down for 60-40, 60 towards Kimberly, 40 towards TBP for this first round of
better than I thought it would be.
Me putting out music.
I'd want like 10%. Like,
really?
I'll give you like 2 questions, and then you can hit one at the end.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be respectful of you even when you came in the first time, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you want to talk about the band Perry or not.
Yeah.
Because maybe you don't.
I think context matters, though. I think even making this project that I made had a lot to do with bridging the gap between part one of my life, part one of my creative, and this part two. And so to me, I'm like, never want anybody to feel like there are things that I'm not willing to talk about. And I guess for that reason, again, on this first round of my solo artistry, I'm down for the 60-40 if people want to go there.
What was home like as a 8-year-old?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, as an 8-year-old. Well, Neil would have only been 1 year old at that point. He was a very serious baby, so it wasn't too loud around the house. I, though, as the oldest, I remember would always want to still be performing then. Like, I had the performance bug really, really early. And so we have these home videos of, my mom, like, rocking Neil, and Reed was a little toddler, and I was just in the background going, somebody present me. Like, present me, mama, So I think I always had to be entertained, but was always wanting to entertain. Like, I was not just I could not have been an easy kid, even at 8 years old. I was just wanting everybody to pay attention to me.
Where do you think that came from? As in, were your parents performers, or did you have 2 brothers and now you needed to fight for attention because you had babies? Where do you think it came from?
I think there's always some of that with the older kid, for sure. I think I definitely was used to all the attention. My grandparents were extremely involved in my earliest years. My aunt and uncle, it kind of took a village to raise me in the beginning. And so I feel like I was just used to a lot of attention. And then I think also it's my nature. Like, I do think that people have a destiny, and I think we are. I think you're born to do exactly what you're doing. I think I'm born to do exactly what I'm doing. And I think those things show themselves very early. In fact, we even talk with Whit. I'm like, I just can't wait to see, like, what are his earliest signs of, like, the thing that he loves, that he's naturally so gifted at.
Gurgling. He's
Gurgling.
going to be a professional gurgler. You heard it here first.
An Olympic
Yes.
gurgler. And for me, I think those were just early signs of what I was meant to do.
So forgive me for not knowing your parents' situation. Were your parents there? Were they alive?
Yes.
Okay, you said aunt and uncle. Because my grandma raised me. My mom was out for a lot of my life. I didn't know my dad. So everybody's situation is different. So I don't want to be insensitive. So you say a village. Did everybody live close to each other?
Yeah, so I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. We were in Madison, Mississippi. So my grandparents actually moved from Texas to be closer to all of us. My dad's parents lived on the Gulf Coast, so they were just a couple hours away. But it was really the maternal side that was really involved. I think my mom and her sister wanted kids to grow up together and have cousins, and we were just incredibly, incredibly close.
Were they musical at all? Your parents, aunts, grandmas, like how?
No, I mean, everybody asked this. My mom was really good at piano, and I think my dad loved music, but neither one of them like to the level that we pursued. I think it was something they were really excited that I got into really young. I tested, I think when I was in 5th grade, I tested in like the top percent on the music aptitude test. And that was the moment that they were like, I'm sorry, do we have a musician in our house? And they really started to do everything to facilitate that for me from that age. And I think Reed and Neil, as they got older, that looked like a blast to be able to play music. And
Do you think
got
they
into
would have
it.
wanted to do music if you hadn't?
That's a great question. I think, I don't know.
We're following
I
leads
wonder.
in life generally.
Yeah.
We're all following some sort of lead in some place. And their older sister, who they think is cool, at least at some point,
Right.
and she's singing. And, would they have wanted to follow that up if you weren't? If you just were like, I hate music, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go be an engineer.
I don't know. I think being the oldest, I definitely think that had a lot of influence on the path that the family took. I do. I think my brothers are also really gifted at so much. So I'm curious to see what happens from this point. Neil is an incredible photographer. He loves music. But he's kind of like an artist, 360 artist, if you will. So I'm wondering how all that will coincide. And then the same thing for Reed. Like, Reed has a brain that works like a scientist. He is a food scientist. I'm like, when can I come to your Michelin 3-star restaurant? I can't wait. And he, I would say, brought a lot of the taste and the aesthetic to the band, meaning both like the sounds of the records, but also a lot of the visual. He was kind of like our bar when it came to that. So they're so gifted in a lot of similar ways to me, but also vastly different. So as their sister, I'm just curious to see like how all of that will play out for all of us.
When
at
you
this point.
turn 12, 13, 14 years old, are you the musical kid in 7th, 8th grade? Are you the
Yeah,
singer?
the clarinet player.
So they know you, your classmates know you love music.
Yes.
And do you have were you homeschooled or did you have
No,
your own
I
school?
was in public school.
Okay. So your classmate, you're the music person, but what did you think was like at the ceiling for music? Because I'm from a small town in Arkansas.
Yeah.
There was no doing this where I come from.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I dreamed of, because I saw it, I thought I could do it.
Yeah.
So, but what was the ceiling in Jackson, Mississippi to you musically? Or was it just not music? It was just something you were doing for fun at the time?
No, I think the ceiling was very, very tall because I was like obsessed with going to shows. Even at 9 years old, the first gift that I was ever given with music was tickets to the New Kids on the Block show. And it was at this stadium. And I was the kid that thought, they were going to pick out one girl in the audience to come on stage so Jordan Knight could like sing to her with his shirt blowing, with the fan. And I knew it was going to be me. It never dawned on me that it wouldn't be on the stage. And so he didn't choose me, so I left early. Like even before Hanging Tough, I was out of there. And so I think I always had this sense of like, my parents exposed me to big stages as a fan really early on. And I think while maybe not like in 6th grade when I started playing clarinet in band, I don't know at that point that the dream was as big as that New Kids on the Block stage. But I also never probably questioned whether or not I could be on a big stage, if that makes sense.
How did you have confidence? Where did that come from? Because you feel like a confident kid, at least in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Like who gave you?
I just didn't know better, probably. I was bullied considerably in 8th grade.
For?
I don't know. It was other girls at the school, and my parents actually had to take me out halfway in the middle of my 8th grade year. Because these girls, they just proper tried to jump me after class one day. And I think some guy had said that I had said something really bad about this girl that I didn't say. And I just was very confused by the whole thing. So I would say pre-8th grade, I didn't struggle with confidence at all. I think after my 8th grade year, that was my first taste of somebody doesn't like me, or this whole place is kind of against me in this way. I had never felt that before. And looking back now, I remember when they took me out for the second half of the year, like I couldn't stay awake during the day. And now I was like, oh, I was like depressed, I didn't know that then. But I kind of had to regain confidence at certain pivotal moments in my life. And that was the first one. In my adult life, it would have been post-divorce. And so what sometimes had come naturally to me, confidence, hope, I had to regain those pieces at certain moments in life.
I'm sorry that happened to you in 8th grade. That's traumatic.
Crazy.
That sucks. Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you. So here you are. I just, with me, these cycles of the same things have happened over and over in my life, to where you say, these girls in 8th grade affected you, and it affected you later in different ways.
Yeah.
It did. I mean, it has for me too,
For
right?
sure.
Like, did it get hard again when you guys achieved a certain amount of success and you could actually start to see the feedback that wasn't good? Did it feel
Yes.
the same like almost like that, like at its core? Like sometimes when people will talk bad about me, it'll feel like I'm being beat up again in 5th grade.
Yeah.
It just feels like the same. Did it feel like that at all?
Yeah, it was like, especially when social media really became a thing. I would always tell my brothers, Neil was just like thick skinned, could read anything about us, positive or negative, and be fine. Any negative comment, if there were 200 positives and one bad, I just really struggled with it. And I think it was triggering back to that earliest feeling of almost doom. Like it felt like a very like doom moment. Like everything's going to fall apart. Everything's going to end based on this one comment. I think I have a lot more of a thick skin now, but only because I've arrived back to a place of confidence in the last like couple of years, to be honest. But yeah, I would feel this way I was like, you just can't tell me about it, because if I know it exists, it will not get out of my head for
Right.
days.
Yeah, I would spiral at times.
Yeah. It's hard. And it, again, I don't know if you felt this way. It didn't matter how many positives were there, and they were
Absolutely.
overwhelming.
And you would find the one negative.
The one. And I couldn't. And I had one, I put out this song, embarrassingly, called Hallelujah. I'm wearing the merch today. But I put it out last week, and there was so many wonderful comments on my Instagram, and there was this one woman who just, like, it clearly was not about my version of Hallelujah, like the hatred. And I was just like, you know what? I don't even feel this. Bless her. I was like, what's going on in her life? She's having a bad day. And I was like, okay, this feels nice to be at this, like, very arrived moment. And I don't want to nobody test me in this. Like, don't fill up the comments, with a million things, just so I'll pay attention to it. But it felt nice to go like, this just doesn't hurt. I don't feel this. This is not about me.
And probably because you have, through an education, which is hard to do. If it's hard to get an education, and perspective is only gained because you've had to go through crap to get it.
Yeah.
Is that you can at times filter out what matters and what doesn't. And sometimes the stuff that doesn't still gets me.
Right.
But for the most part, same.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've focused enough on stuff that doesn't matter.
Right.
That now I can kind of see it coming, and I can sometimes stop the spiral.
Right.
I still get there at times.
Yeah.
Or if I'm just in a weird place or a bad place and it hits me just right. But you're right. I wish I won't insert you into me. I wish I valued, because I do value them, but I wish I valued at the same level the positive things.
Me too. It's hard for me to let that in sometimes. And I don't know why that is either. It's almost like I never let that impact me in the same way as the negativity. And I don't love that about myself. I want to let in.
Even if we just treated it the same. Well,
Yeah.
We're not even, you and I both aren't saying here, we wish that we valued the positive comments more one-to-one. If we just valued it the same,
totally,
we would still come out a winner, because I feel like, for the most part, people like me.
right.
Some people don't. But I also don't like everybody, so I shouldn't expect everybody to like me, right?
Exactly.
Now, this is adult perspective that's kind of creeping in on the unhealthy thoughts that
Right.
I've always had. But if we just valued it the same, like somebody says something nice, somebody says something negative. Okay, well, those two are the same. Let's just remove those altogether. We're
Right.
even. I would just be in the positives.
Right.
But
Totally.
I still struggle with that sometimes
Same.
too, especially when it's something that's not true.
Right.
And for me, getting married has been a great help, because my wife is not in this industry
Right.
in any way whatsoever. Does not like it. She doesn't hate it, but she's not drawn to it at all.
Right.
Actually, she's been drawn less to it being in it, because she's like, oh, I don't like being public. People are mean to her for no reason.
Right.
So it makes her go, it's not for me, because I haven't done anything to expose myself to get this sort of criticism.
Sure.
Like she'll say, I'm not you. I'm not trying to create a career where you
Right.
do have this happen to you. People will have
Right.
opinions. She goes, I just exist and people come at me.
Right.
And so it's made her not enjoy it more than she already wasn't enjoying it.
Sure.
But it's also been great for me because I can be with someone who isn't sitting in this tornado of entertainment, if it's TV, radio, music,
Right.
whatever it is.
It's got to be really grounding.
Well, for you.
So, and I know it is for me.
That's what I was going to lead to. So now when you go home, because you are very involved,
Yeah.
you have been for a long time in Nashville in music, as big as it gets, can you go home and since you have someone that's not fully in it, not be in it for a bit?
Yes. And when I met Johnny, we met down in Dallas during COVID because it did not exist in Texas. And so the first day that we all hung out, it was with a group of people, and we all wound up at this thrift shop. And it just so happened that there was a TBP shirt at the thrift shop, which I was super offended by. I was like, who's getting rid of this gold?
That's hilarious.
I was really pissed.
Yeah.
And so he got the shirt, and he had no context for anything that I had ever done in music. Like if I Die Young, that's not a song that was on his radar. His taste in music live, very, very esoteric. And it was nice to kind of just have, I don't know, the first person to accept me just 100% for me, and to know that there was so much purity in that. And he thought I was hilarious just based on my sense of humor. It wasn't like, I'm going to laugh at your jokes so I can try to score another day. But, it just felt wholly accepted. And so he still he understands our world more now just because he's gotten an up close, view of it. But he doesn't care. He just doesn't care. And that helps me also not care about certain things that I would typically obsess over and spin out over. And it's just been nice to go hey, I'm building from the ground up again, Grateful for the TBP Foundation. I would say there aren't a million favors that are coming towards my artistry because of that, which I'm totally down for. So we're, in some respects, our family is grinding all over again, but it's been nice to have his stability to sort of separate from the way the grind felt the first time. It was full on 24/7 for years.
Just consumed. So the parallel is hilarious. So my wife, same, right? She went back to get her graduate degree. She was living in California. She didn't listen to the show. She didn't know anything about. And her friend, we had a mutual friend that's from Oklahoma, where she's from. It's like, hey, you two should meet, whatever.
Yeah.
It was also an organic meet. Everything about it was what it shouldn't have been, which was organic. Because now, just a lot of stuff's not organic now. Or maybe that is organic now. But to how, I grew up, how we grew up. And so I would unhealthily balance myself, because I'd be like, how does she not know I've done this stuff?
Yeah.
She should be in awe that I... But then I was so happy it was like I would never let myself be fully happy, because I loved it. She didn't give a crap about it.
I know.
But then I was kind of like...
But a little bit.
But gas me up a little bit, because of my achievements.
Totally. I feel that.
And so I'm it's been a high wire that my ego has had to walk a little bit, because there are times, and she'll tell me, she'll go, hey, would you please let me know when something's a big deal?
Right.
Because I won't sometimes, and I'll get my feelings hurt when she doesn't acknowledge it. And she's like, I don't live in this space. And she's very mature, way more mature than I am emotionally.
Yeah.
She's like, I need you to let me know when something's a big deal, because I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's our communication in this world of entertainment.
I love that.
That's cool. If I get a TV show, and it's I don't really care. Not that I don't care, but it's not that big a deal.
Sure.
I'll be like, not that big a deal. But sometimes I'll be like, you need to throw me a dinner.
Right.
This is
major.
But that is a mature part of our relationship. Now, how did that go with you guys? Again, she's learned a lot about it, but she didn't at first. Was there a elementary class you had to teach him on things that are entertainment?
I think for me, where it comes up or came up earlier, in our relationship, would be if he was always surprised if I was recognized somewhere. He was like, I'm sorry, wait, how does that person know you? And I was just like, you should just do a deep dive. I'm not really a person that ever felt like a star or like a celebrity, really. We were so inside our bubble of just grinding that I don't know that there were many times that we just sort of sat and enjoyed that side of it.
Do you regret not enjoying that side of it? Or do you think that actually allowed you to succeed more because you didn't?
Yes and no. I wish that I had felt the fruit of the labor a little bit better. Like, I think that would have felt nice. I do think it helped us grind, but I also think it made us not compromise in certain moments that we should have to keep our career trajectory a little more stable. Like, I feel like if I understood from the outside looking in or looking at us how much there were parts of TBP that were so revered, despite what was happening like behind the curtain, which was really complex at that time professionally with the people we were working with, I would have gone, let's protect this and figure out how to navigate what's happening. The Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, let's figure that out to really protect and guard what we have here. So for that reason, I wish I had understood it a little bit better.
I want to jump way ahead, but I do want to come back, and I'm going to plead ignorance to a couple of things
Okay.
in just a second. But I do want to talk about now because did you give it a certain amount of time, or was it just a feeling where it's like I'm giving it a run again and by myself, and I know what's going to happen when I go back. Everybody's going to want to be like, "Oh, I love you," or "Why are you back?" or "I didn't love you." You know, because it's not like you're just a new artist. You're a new artist. But you're a new artist that people already have some sort of relationship with.
Right.
So was it strategic to come back after a certain amount of time, or was it just a feeling inside and you're like, let's just go?
I think it was a feeling that I had more to say. You know, it's a difficult path to feel like you're relevant and then you're irrelevant. And that's not even the ego side of it. Like, that's the artistic side of it for me. For my songs to be heard and be being sung and be relevant, and then to not have the art respected in that way or even heard, right? Even given the shot, that was what really drove me to go like, no, I'm not trying to book a year of TBP shows at this amount and just fade off into the sunset. Like, I want to be part of the future, not just the past. And I understood what that meant, which is like start from the bottom again. And there's a grind that comes with that. But for me, it was about the relevance of the songs and the art being modern and being future oriented and not just past oriented.
Did you have a certain piece of creative content, that could be a song, that could be a poem or whatever, that made you go, oh God, I don't want to just be that person that everybody knows me for. Like, I want to be my own. But was it based on anything that was kind of a trigger point for you? Or did you just always know and you were just kind of, at one point, I'm going to get back in?
I spent a lot of time during COVID writing songs by myself with my acoustic guitar. And by nature, I'm a folk writer. Like, If I Die Young is a folk song, right? Obviously, country has its American roots music. There's folk, we got rock and roll. There's a lot that goes into the body of country music. And so I've always felt like my songwriting fit best in this genre. But during COVID, I had not reconnected with just myself as a songwriter without anybody else in the room in a while.
Why did you do that, though? Why did you reconnect? Well, like, what led to that? What triggered that to go, I need to reconnect with myself?
Just the stillness of COVID, the stillness of 2020. And we had come back home from the West Coast because Reed, Neal, and I lived out there for several years and came back to our farm in East Tennessee. And it was just like, I have nothing to do every day but write songs during the day and drink margaritas and watch The Bachelor at night. Like, that was my COVID. And I was also in a really kind of lonely place there. Like, I had not met my husband yet and really wanted love and my own family. I wanted that to develop in my life. And so that body of work and those songs that I wrote, I would never release now because it doesn't feel like where my spirit is. I'm in a much happier and healthier place. But the nuts and bolts of writing in that way and the transparency of the lyrics, that I was like, whoa, I've arrived at this new place of just songcraft for me, myself, and I, that inspired me to, like, let's get back home. Let's get back to Nashville. Let's get back to country music. And let's see if I can bring what I love about this vulnerable writing forward with me. And maybe that's the future of my voice.
Did you have to build the confidence back up?
I had to build confidence back up on the heels of a divorce. I went through a divorce.
So personally?
Personally, yeah. Hope was always super easy for me to find. I didn't, lose it that much. But coming back and getting back on my feet after that and everything that just does to your self-confidence, it does it to anybody who's walked through it, that took a minute to rebuild.
What do you mean? I haven't been through a divorce. Hopefully I didn't get married till I was 40. So I
Yeah.
waited a long time. Never thought I was going to get married.
Yeah.
Never really wanted to get married until I met my wife.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking these questions not because I want anyone to be like, oh, look at I'm generally
Sure.
curious. And I feel like you and I can talk openly. And
For sure.
what happens? What do you just, do you feel like you didn't
I think the
complete something?
exposure feels
Oh, the
terrifying, right?
exposure. Got it.
Because you just, whether it's to their friends or their family or the public at large, like you're sharing every moment with this person who knows you for better, for worse. And then all of a sudden, it's like the person you're the most terrified of because they have
They know
all the
everything.
ammo of your life, you know? It wasn't even about like public exposure. It was just like, okay, now I'm sort of in opposition to this. That felt very disorienting to me because in my family, when I grew up, you know, it felt like a really safe environment. And even if like, you know, it all hit the fan or somebody was going through a moment, like you protect that information, you protect that person until they get on the other side of it. And all of a sudden I was just, that was just a really, like it did a crazy thing to my mind.
You talking about that. I was with my therapist. I was in therapy a couple days ago. Do you go to therapy at all? Do you have
Definitely.
Okay. So for me, it's been an adjustment to be somewhere safe.
Yeah.
My whole life, didn't have
Right.
family, didn't have safety. My wife is extremely safe,
Yeah.
but it's so foreign that it doesn't feel safe
Yeah. It's new.
because it's so new. And
Yeah.
my therapist was like, he asked me, he said, where do you feel safe? Just generally, where have you ever felt safe in your life? Where do you feel safe now, period? I thought about it for a long time. And I said, I feel like now I don't have to worry about paying bills anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel safe there. And he was like, but what about your wife? I said, that's the safest. I know with my mind,
Yeah.
that's the safest thing. But when we get in a fight, I'm still like, is she going to leave?
Right.
And his whole thing to me was, you've developed differently and slower, and in some
Yeah.
ways much faster. But when you talk about safety, I can see how that would be such a difference for you.
Yeah.
Because both of us have had safety, and it's been unsafe at the different places.
Yeah.
So it's a shock when the other happens.
It's a shock to your system. And for me too, it was not only, just like the exposure of somebody who knows you and can almost like just reject everything that was. I was like, but why? What did I do wrong? Like, what was I not enough? It just really almost, I think every other bit of criticism had come from the outside towards me at that point. It's like career criticism, whatever. But that was the first time that the critique was like in my heart.
Yeah.
And I just hadn't felt that way before. And I don't know, maybe he had certain feelings of that as well in the end. But it was a moment in time that I had to sort of like start to do things on purpose. Let's figure out what to put hope in and how to like muster hope on purpose. Let's do that with our confidence. Let's do the work. Let's go to therapy. Let's work ourselves from the inside out again and rebuild. And ultimately, I'm grateful that it all happened because now I don't do anything on accident. Like I'm not standing on my own 2 feet because I've never been sort of blown by a strong wind,
Right.
They're just like planted here because I've done the work to know that they're firm now.
Is there an appreciation for safety now because you had it before and then didn't have it, but now you understand how valuable it is?
Absolutely. And I found that in my marriage as well. We were raised very much believing and that marriage is forever. And that when we said I do and we eloped to Vegas at midnight after 8 months, it was like, this is us deep diving forever. And I think we both approach our marriage like that every single day. And you have to, right? Because a lot of crazy stuff has even happened the last couple of years that we've already walked through as a couple. And it's the security, though, of walking through it with somebody who's not just going to like leave or it's going to feel too much for. He'll never get to that point. He has really strong emotional shoulders,
Really?
Yeah. And he helps me shoulder all the things and vice versa. He's had a lot of, the inception of his life had some really crazy experiences. And the first weekend we hung out, we just shared all that with each other. And I was like, this is my person. This
cool.
is a safe spot.
He is one of the riders on Black Corvette.
He is, yeah.
How, what, when?
So we started Black Corvette actually at our honeymoon. We honeymooned in Palm Springs for a month. And we did it
a month.
A month, yeah.
Wow.
It was really, really fun. But we did it in like August of 2021 and like heat wave. Like, I think the heat index was like 15. It was so hot. The AC went out at our Airbnb. It was just like amazing. We just stayed in the pool all day, drank Palomas all day. It was so much fun. But we had some guitars out there, and I really wanted to tell the story of kind of like the Black Corvette is our spirit animal. Because when we decided to elope, it was very spur of the moment. We were in LA and we wanted to drive to Vegas, but I was like, we got to put some like tests in here. If this is the right thing to do, like if somebody will let us rent a Black Corvette and drive it from LA to Vegas, and we can do it today, then this is meant to be today. If not, we cannot go get married.
That's really what happened.
Yeah. And so like the first guy that we called, I name dropped, and he was a fan of the band. He's like, I trust you to take my car. And so they let us take it on a road trip to Vegas and back.
So you found a Black Corvette.
We did. First call we made. And I was like, okay. And then everything, like we didn't have an efficient, and the Little White Wedding Chapel was closed early. They closed like 8 p.m. We weren't going to make it till 10. So I was like, man, I don't know. I guess we just like start taking off in this Corvette and the pieces will fall in place. And so I just Googled like 24-hour efficient. And there was this woman who went to Vanderbilt, got her divinity degree there, worked Glenn Campbell's Gentle on My Mind when it was a radio single, which is like the song that we got our Grammy for re-recording. And she and her husband, who looked just like Chris Christopherson, showed up and married us at midnight.
Where?
We were at the Wynn. We just got a hotel room. And
the Black Corvette thing blows my mind. That you guys were like, if we could find, and you found a Black Corvette.
Yeah. So every time we see one now, it's like, pay attention. We're either on the wave or something is coming to us. Like we need to pay attention.
Do you guys own one?
Not yet. No. And now we have a baby. I'm like, okay, I guess we can use this for date night with the whole 2 seats, but we don't yet.
You're only 3 months into having a baby. And so again, your life has shifted and you've had to modify in ways that you don't even understand. You're going to always have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm told. I don't know. What do I know about
I'm
baby?
told too. I don't know yet, but I believe him.
And what I like about having this conversation with you is how you let it. You're like, I was never around babies. Me either.
Mm-mm.
So it's only 3 months, so it's an almost unfair question. Are you guys trying to prioritize still trying to have an identity as a couple, not just a couple of parents?
Oh, yes. We talked a lot about that even before we got pregnant because it was like, and I think that's also an important thing for a kid to observe, you know, as we grow in our couple. I want our kid to always see us as, yes, mom and dad, but also like, hey, look at this marriage. I want that for myself. Like, I want to set a great example for what he eventually will look for in his life. And I already, even now, I like pray, like, you know, God, let his wife, whoever she may be today, just let her have a happy morning. You know, I believe in partnership, the security of it, like we've talked about, but also like, I think great things are born from that. And I want our kid to have every bit of confidence in his home so that he can inject that confidence into his heart and let that flow from there. So yeah, we definitely have like found the right folks to come in who are so sweet and love Wit as much as we do for the 5 hours that mom and dad need like a night.
Was it hard the first time?
It was, although the night nurse was the first and we were so sleep deprived. I was like, thank you. Thank you. And he was crying. I was like, I'm so sorry to hand him to you like this, but thank you for being here. So it just felt like a blessing, I think, that we would get a little bit of sleep that night.
Did you think you would cut Black Corvette when you wrote it?
So the funny thing, I mean, yes and no. Like, I loved it. And then the Bloom project and Super Bloom happened in 2 sessions. And so we cut Black Corvette in the first session, but did not put it out until Super Bloom. So it's not that I didn't even love it. It didn't feel like it fit into the first 5. And I think it was just like the part of the narrative was kind of like not there for me yet. But it felt like it had to be a part of this Super Bloom moment. Like before we move on and before I tell any more of the story, whatever I'm going to say next, we had to tell that part of our narrative.
We mentioned before you and I started, we were recording, we were talking about Bloom. The summer it came out, Super Bloom came out end of October, just a couple weeks ago. And it was 5 and now it's 9. It's like, it's a deluxe EP, is that it? So, I mean, it's basically an album. I mean, it's
all the kids are putting out the deluxe EPs.
Right. It's super deluxe. They can't get any more deluxe than this. But again, with your music and you returning, did you feel like, okay, the songs, they need to be good, but also the message of the story would you have just put out great songs that meant nothing?
I don't think I can do it. I don't think I could even do that with TBP, and that became some of the struggle, to be honest. Like, I feel like in some respects, our whole career hinged on, there's like BC and AD was that song Chainsaw, you know? Like both with our relationships behind the scenes, but also the public. I was just like, I could not wrap my head. I love the writers. I think it's a great song. I did not think it was our song. And I really, really struggled with having to make that like the single that was growing our career because it just didn't feel authentic to me. And I feel that way about my music. Like I have to be able to emotionally connect with it or feel like it's something I would have said. Like Better Dig Too, not an authentic part of my story at that time. I was being a storyteller, but it was a story that I loved to tell. So that's kind of how I feel about my own music. I needed Bloom and Super Bloom to be probably the most highly narrative of what I will put out in my career as a solo artist. I think I put so much pressure on. That was like a bar for me. I have to have lived every word in these 9 songs. I think that can loosen up in the future. Like if I want to do a breakup song and I'm not actively breaking up with my husband, I'm down to do that because that's a story and a character that I love to tell. But this project had to be every word of truth.
I thought that might be the case because, again, you only have a first time to have a first time.
Yeah.
Except you get a second first time, which is even more
Weird.
rare.
Yeah. It's
and
crazy.
So you kind of want to be very direct and deliberate about what your narrative is.
Yeah.
Even looking at some of the writers that you wrote with, like we're friends with Sasha Sloan and Henry.
They're amazing.
I love them. They're just awesome.
They're the best.
Now, I've never done anything creative.
Yeah.
We hang out, or Henry and I will play golf or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know them in that capacity. I just know them as people. I can enjoy their work if I'm just consuming it.
Right.
But when you're writing with Sasha, and Jimmy's been here before, and I know Jimmy Robbins, and you know, you guys, what song did you guys do together? There's one, Burn
the House.
Is that the one that you guys, you 3 wrote together?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it like to work with her? Because she, like you kind of know what you get pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you also will decide, do I like it?
Right.
You two are very similar in that way.
Yeah.
What's it like to write with Sasha?
We've written several times now. The first write was Burn the House Down. And I just loved her because, like, what you see is what you get. And I'm not, like, I'm highly emotional. I don't think I'm, like, for instance, on Christmas morning, I could get everything that I wanted as a kid. And I wouldn't get, like, over the top excited about it. You know, I was just like, cool, this was really nice. I feel like Sasha's very much wired in the same way. Like our temperaments are very compatible in the writing room. The day that we wrote Burn the House Down, I had some stuff going down that day. And so I just kind of started the session with like, here was my morning, you know? And then I think she was like, here was my morning. And Jimmy was like, how about we say it like this? You know, to rise from the ashes, you got to burn the house down. And it was just this perfect blend of like feeling safe in a space to be vulnerable with what was actually happening, and also her sense of melody and the way that she has her little dark tinge and the way that she likes to write things, I totally resonate with. It just really felt very meant to be, and it was a really quick write. We work well together.
I'm such a fan of her work.
Same.
I like her as a person, but I can definitely separate the two.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever work with her.
Right.
I'm such a fan of her work and her writing.
Good.
And her,
She's amazing.
And it's just like, you know what you're getting. Even musically, you just know who you're getting. You listen to a song and a half, it don't matter if it's, and most of them are not up tempo.
Right.
But you know who that is. But I feel the same way with you a bit, even with this project. And the first track on it is you Fool's Gold, which is basically, tell me if I'm wrong here, referencing you guys trying something else that maybe you shouldn't have, like when you guys were in the band Perry.
I won't say necessarily trying something we shouldn't have. I'm always down for people to
when you say
do the
Fool's
exploration.
Gold, though, that's where my mind
that was
goes.
the result.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So I'm always down for the exploration. I'm a type of person, like, if I have a question, I have to have an answer to it. I can't really take somebody else's word for it always. Maybe I wish I could. And I think it was incredibly important in some respects that we took the steps that we did. But I definitely thought the outcome would be different. And so for me, it ended up like, oh, I was chasing this thing.
Was it because somebody told you it'd be different? Did you? Fool's Gold to me is like you're chasing something because somebody says there's gold in them dar hills, and you get there and there are no hills or gold.
I think it was more everybody saying, hey, you've been successful in this space. You're going to be successful in this space. There's a plan that has to be executed to go from this space to this space. And I don't think that we had at that time, the team, to really help us make that real. But I also think that by nature, I'll speak for myself, I'm more built to be a country singer-songwriter than a pop artist. That's what I resonate with. That's how I communicate. But I think there was this part of me that's like, well, we can do this. We can do this. We love everything, so we can do everything. Like, I'm a fan of
And you
everything.
crossed over accidentally.
With If I Die Young.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that getting that early taste is honestly all we wanted to do over and over again for a lot of reasons. That path on other songs was cut short for us. And I just really wanted to get back to the full run. Like, let the song go to number one at country radio. And then if the world wants to hear it, then let's go do that run. And then that's going to take us internationally. We love to tour over in Europe. So that's, for the career arc, I just wanted to keep teeing that up, always starting in country music and rooted here. But I don't know. I just felt like when the business, I hate it when the business gets in the way of like the creative, But that definitely in that moment got in the way of what was happening creatively. And so I guess it was like we sort of found ourselves in no man's land. And that was really, really like a challenge. But ultimately, I'm baked as a country artist. It's what I do. It's what I love. It's what I'm good at.
I don't even think anybody questions it. I don't know how you feel because you see remarks from everybody all the time, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that I know, even not super in the business, no one has ever come to me and said, oh, Kimberly's full of crap. She's back in country because she had to be back in country. Nobody says that. Like, I don't feel like you have to, like, prove yourself as a country art. Do you feel like you have to prove yourself as a country artist?
I think it's more like I have to answer why we ever stepped forward out of that in the first place. And our intention, that story has gotten so
I don't even know the
warped
story.
over the years. Well, I think there were a lot of voices that were like, they just left country in the dust. They didn't care. And that was not true. Well, like the article I was saying earlier on the TikTok, it was like they just decided to do this thing and they just hightailed it out of here. And it's like, well, first of all, it's not what happens. I know that that's the story that got told on our behalf in a season where, like, for a million reasons, we just couldn't really tell the real story of what was happening. And that's sad to me because that was never our intention. So I think I feel the need sometimes to defend why we stepped forward in the first place, but also to own that at the same time. It's like defend it and own it.
So
there's
you can move
two
on
sides.
from it.
Yeah. And that was what Fool's Gold was for me. Like, let me say this. It was not everything that I was hoping it would be. But it's also nice to come back and, like, feel rooted again. And I think people give me the benefit of the doubt. Like, my intentions are pure. And I have felt the warm welcome back to country music.
I think they do, even without you around, give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And that means a lot to me because that's not something that I just assume somebody should offer.
I agree. And I don't think everybody does. I think most people do. And the people that don't, probably because they have a relationship with you or your people and I don't know this firsthand because I don't know I was here, but I just never got wrapped. I don't know the story.
Yeah.
All I know is because I'll get to that in a second. I have one more song. I want to ask about your new project. One more thing. Monsters, which is the parentheses Wit's Lullaby song.
Yes.
I got like 4 more questions. But so is that a song that you'll play him? Or was it just kind of inspired by what? Tell me, Wit's Lullaby, why?
So I found out I was pregnant. And for whatever reason, I was just like, I kind of have to write lyrics and melody at the same time. Like, I can't just go like, oh, this is a really lovely melody. What's it saying to me? Like, the words, I just will just jam and have my, like, the voice notes on my phone. And for whatever reason, I started to sing that thing about ain't no monsters under the bed, no history hanging over my head. It's something that I felt for myself in that moment, both from just like the entire history of my life. I felt like I was at this place where I was like, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not scared to be me. I'm not scared for people to know exactly what that is. I do feel a regained sense of confidence and maybe even a confidence I have never experienced before. And then I found out I was pregnant around the same time. And it was like, I loved the idea of getting the pieces in your life organized and cleaning out the clutter in your closet to be able to make space for like another person to come in, whether that's a relationship, whether in my story that was for our son to get to come in and go like, hey, you've got a clean slate here to make this planet anything that you want it to be. As much as I can. And as much therapy as I've done, I want to give him like the opportunity for it to not have a mountain to climb before he's even started to crawl. You know what I mean? So that's what Monsters meant to me. And it also felt like this point of arrival. I felt like I was singing that to myself as well. Like it's my truth and my lullaby. And I wanted to offer that to our son.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I kind of wondered why you would record it, or if you recorded it for the reason of, I'm always going to play it for him. But now that you say that, I understand. The context is great.
Yeah. Like there was a moment I was like, is this the offering? Hey, lay your head here on my shoulder. Or is it, there ain't no monsters under my bed. I lay here on my pillow. Like, is it the self-confidence statement or is it an offering? And it kind of feels like both,
Sure.
you know?
Okay. I got like 3 questions left. And I'm going to, again, plead ignorance. This is what I know. Because I don't, when you're like, people hold us accountable, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just kind of nodded along. Like, yeah, of course. Because that, whatever that is, I don't know it. The only thing that I remember is, and I don't know who your management is now, but I'm at Red Light. And I know you guys were there. And they were like, yeah, the band Perry's leaving Red Light. And I was like, okay. And that was it. That's all I ever knew.
Yeah.
And then I saw on Instagram, like, wait, maybe black or yellow? Again, I don't even remember. But
the color of the moment?
Yeah.
Like the Live Forever moment?
Maybe. Don't remember.
Yellow.
But that's all I remember.
Yeah.
But to me, I never felt any sort of, they are terrible, they suck, they left. But I'm not in the space that you're in. What do you think was the unfair narrative, and why do you think that was it?
Well, let me say it this way.
I'm just confused.
I feel like
is all I'm trying to say.
sometimes and I feel like I see this sometimes from other artists who have stepped out of the space. You feel like you're fighting with everybody when there's a challenge going on, like behind the scenes.
Because, like record label.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
You feel like you're fighting a genre for your identity and like to grow and to be rooted here, but also like explore and get to expand. Now in hindsight, I go, I was only fighting like a couple people for that identity and for that control. It was not country music. And the part of the story that's gotten very lost is that we were not trying to leave the format. When we left our first label home, our intention was not to just go sign a pop deal in LA, right? We wanted to stay rooted in country, which is why we did the deal at UMG here. And we also had a parent company, which was Interscope in LA. And that's the same situation that we had been in from the beginning when If I Die Young crossed over to pop radio. And so I think all of a sudden what happened was country radio, which was so incredibly, you lived and died by it at that moment. That rug got really pulled out from under our feet. Like I remember going to do some radio shows promoting our next country single, a song called Comeback Kid that we put out at UMG. And I would have these PDs kind of come up, the heads of these stations, and they would just say, thank you so much for being here. I cannot play this song. Because they had been told that it was an act of aggression if they played it and that they were not to support us anymore.
Okay, so this is a situation where, and don't fill in any blanks here, this situation where it's somebody or some unit is
powerful forces.
You're not aligned, and because you're not aligned, their alignment wins.
Correct. Which makes sense to me because, at that point, gatekeepers were such a powerful force. And that was a really heartbreaking thing, and it just kept happening. And so the head of our new label at that point, they called us on like a Saturday, and they just said, hey, these waters are really turbulent. And so we don't know how to protect you here and help you keep growing. Keep going, I guess, and like see if this can break over in the other side at pop. And so it was really scary. And it was also like, man, this is such a bummer because I feel like we just gave all of this time to build this foundation, and now it feels like the rug has been pulled underneath our feet. All that to say, that's nerdy music business stuff, but
I need that context because I didn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Honestly. And I was like,
and so it's incredibly hard sometimes to see. It's less hard now because there's so much time in the rear view. But when somebody brings the story back up, like the band that killed their own career, it's just like, well, there's a lot that you couldn't see that we were dealing with and struggling through. And we love country music. As the band Perry, it was never our intention to have that in the rear view. We just wanted to continue to grow and be ourselves at home here, and also, as If I Die Young did, have it expand as large as it could in the world, right? Like, that's the dream for everybody. So I think in my solo artistry, it's just important for me to be a defender when I can and fill in some of the blanks that people are curious about. And to really like protect our legacy as much as we can. I'm incredibly proud of what the band Perry did.
All three of those things are. What a balance.
Yeah.
Adding the protect your legacy is quite the balance.
Yeah.
With how we started this, like how much, like if I were me, I wouldn't want to talk about it that much because I'd want people to be like, this is the new, but at the same time, it is very important to you.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that it hasn't been confused over time.
Totally. And I think sometimes silence just allows things to
Absolutely. For sure. Silence gets filled in, and it ain't ever good for the person that's being silent.
Totally.
Well, I'll say this just on, because there's just so many parallels I feel between us and how we communicate with folks and even our careers in a way. But I will go places and and you may not feel as much as I do, but I'll go places and I'll be like, I don't want to go in there because everybody hates me. And my wife will go, why do you think that? I was like, because I know I have big opinions and I know I'm probably in there all like, we hate this guy, we don't want. And she's like, do you know them? Like, no, but I know how people are.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, but you're basing all this off of a couple instances. She goes, if you're just going to a random city, let's say you go to somewhere in Iowa. She goes, you'll put some theater tickets on sale, do stand-up, and you'll sell 3,000 tickets.
Yeah.
Do you think everybody hates you? I'm like, no, because she goes, well, why would you randomly feel that walking into a room, and why would you let that change how you're feeling or acting out?
Yeah.
And she has a great point. But emotionally, I'm stunted. And I don't know if you feel like when you first came back to Nashville, like, I don't know, people don't like me or people think the band. I've never once heard that about you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I think coming back in, I just didn't know how people were going to respond. I will say it has been overwhelming how warm everybody has been. And honestly, how many people both championed the music of my past, but also are like, we have been wanting to hear this solo voice forever. And that has just been such a warm welcome, both in our town in Nashville, but also in country music at large and like the fans. That's been a really, really special thing. And I'm incredibly proud of it, because you just don't know. You don't know how people are going to respond. And that's back to the thing. Sometimes, and I think this happens in life too, right? It's not just our business, but it's like you really only have a challenge with one or two people. And it feels bigger than that.
Feels like it's you versus the world.
It's really not. And so that's the perspective that I have now that I wish I had back in those days. I was a lot younger though, right? Sometimes you learn by living.
Yeah, perspective, like we said, you don't earn it for free.
No.
No. That education costs more money than sometimes paying for a freaking college education.
100%. Yeah. But it's also wisdom that I love imparting to younger artists as well, because I think that there are some landmines that I can help artists navigate around at this point. So.
Well, I think people are rooting for you. I know I'm rooting for you. I like you. I genuinely like to be around you. Even when we would just do show stuff, I would be like, man, like we wouldn't hang out or anything, but I'd be like, Kimberly's cool because I just like say this and she'd say that. Yeah. And there was just kind of a respect and understanding of we're just going to say what we say. And then that's just who we are. And we're not going to be that mad or we're not going to be that. That was just it. So I'm rooting for you. Like I like you. And I just want you to know that because if I were you, I'd feel everybody hates me because I feel that way.
Yeah.
And you may not, but that's not how it is.
Thank you.
Not with like the normal people. I'm not normal. I'm crazy.
Right.
But not with like people that aren't so in the weeds.
Right. No, 100%. I think anybody who is also just approaching it with completely pure intentions, right? Like just, do I like this artist's music?
Yeah, is the song good?
Do I like her as like a lady?
Yeah.
And that feels nice. And I do feel that love. And I think as time goes on too, I think the truth always finds its way. And I think I'm really, really proud of the music that the band Perry put out. And I believe time is going to be good to the band Perry and that memory as well.
I don't think you even, again, you're so in it, forest from the trees, I'm 10,000 feet up.
Totally.
I'm not searching for a truth.
Right.
Because to me, it's just good memories.
Totally.
And that's it.
Thank you. I think somebody said, we missed their cheeky lyrics. And I was like,
Well, I got lots of
I
cheek
love
for you.
that.
Yeah, I got
Got
more
some
cheek
cheeks.
coming from you. Yeah. I'm super happy for you. I can't wait to see what this
Thank
turns
you.
into.
Thank you.
And it's never, nothing ever turns into anything, but it's always turning at the same time, and
Heck yeah.
that's what's exciting. So
Thank you.
I'm rooting for you. You guys, which we mentioned earlier, Bloom turned into Super Bloom. So now you really only get Super Bloom. 'Cause why would you get Bloom? You
Exactly.
could just stream all. Yeah. And then I don't know what's like next year. Are you?
Touring.
Well, yeah.
Bus, baby. I can't
Back
wait.
at it?
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite part of all of this, honestly. And I've been telling everybody, I'm like, if you put 180 shows on the books, I'll play 190. I can't wait.
I know the mentality, but gets me in trouble.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I can't wait. But we'll bring Johnny will tour with me, and we'll bring baby and just take the family on the road. I'm really used to that. So
That's super cool. Good to see you. Do your friends call you Kim or Kimberly or what?
KP.
KP. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, when I walked
KP.
in, they said, please refer to Mrs. Perry. And I was like, all right, my bad.
Stop
So,
it. That didn't happen.
I did. It didn't happen.
KP.
All right. Well, good to see you.
You too. Thanks.